Hello, everybody. Welcome to I guess this is the fifth Film Buds bonus show. And this time around, we're going to be talking about the films of director Guy Ritchie. More specifically, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, Revolver, RocknRolla, Sherlock Holmes, and then Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. We're going to be skipping over Man from U.N.C.L.E. just because we did review that on the regular podcast, and you can get that on iTunes. And then we're going to end off with King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, a personal favorite of mine. And so first off, my name is Henry, and no Chloe this time around, but we are joined once again by our good buddy Jacob Bowers, or Jacob #1, as he's known on the show as well. So Jacob, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be back.
Yeah. And first off, thank you so much for downloading and for donating. All of the funds go to help support the weekly show, and so we really, really appreciate it. And yeah, so unlike the regular podcast, we're just going to be doing reviews. We're not going to be doing news or listener questions or anything this time around, but that's okay because we got plenty to talk about. So. Well, I guess we can start off. Jacob, Guy Ritchie is your favorite director, right?
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
He's pretty up there.
Yeah. And so how did you, I guess we can start off by when we were first exposed to the work of Ritchie.
Well, the first movie I ever saw by him was Sherlock Holmes, but I didn't know that was Guy Ritchie at the time. The first movie I watched knowing it was Guy Ritchie was Snatch. I was like, this movie seems cool. I was like, this guy seems cool. And so I watched it and I was like, yeah, wow, that's incredible. And then I started watching all his films, found out he did Sherlock Holmes, and I was like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, so technically Sherlock Holmes was the first one I saw, but that was way back in high school when I didn't really care as much. I didn't really care about like directors and producers.
What did they do, right?
It's kind of funny, like people that aren't like really into movies, they're just like, I don't know who directed that.
Yeah.
Like directors are just like some faceless background people to them. But.
Well, it wasn't until Hitchcock when directors were actually like credited or became famous for being directors, because before then everybody thought that it was just the actors that made the movie good. So,
yeah. Because what do the directors do?
Yeah.
But direct
nothing. Nothing. Yeah. So, I think the first one I saw was the second Sherlock Holmes, and I didn't know it was Guy Ritchie either. And then I think I just went back to the first one, and then I think I saw Snatch, and then I think King Arthur was after that. And then I just recently went back, and I mean, Lock, Stock, Revolver, and RocknRolla were all first-time watches for me. So, and I've been meaning to go through them for ages now, so I'm glad we did this.
It's also funny because I saw Snatch before I saw Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and I had Lock, Stock on DVD for a decade or more. It belonged to my older sister, and I inherited that. And then it's just in storage for the longest time. And then when I saw Snatch, I was like, oh, Guy Ritchie, Lock, Stock is Guy Ritchie. I was like, I have that. So I just went and like pulled it out and watched it.
Wow.
In glorious, DVD quality.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was just lost my train of thought here. But I mean, he's had yeah, that's right. So I guess we are doing this in honor of Aladdin coming out, which comes out this Friday, which Ritchie is directing the live action, very controversial remake of Disney's Aladdin. But
I'm a little intrigued,
Well, apparently the first reviews have been all right, better than expected. So
yeah, I think it's gonna go the way of King Arthur. Like you're either gonna like it or you're not. If you're a fan of Guy Ritchie's style, you're probably gonna like it. If you don't know who Guy Ritchie is, or you don't know anything about his style, and you're just going to see a remake of a Disney classic, then I don't know, maybe you won't like it as much. Because Guy Ritchie has a very specific way of doing things.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that it's very Guy Ritchie. Like, not just like subdued Guy Ritchie.
There's like those shots from the trailer of like Aladdin breakdancing or something.
Yeah, great stuff.
This is really, it would be interesting.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and jump in to the first film that started it all for Ritchie, which was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And this one came out in 1998 and grossed 28 million against a budget of 1.35 million. So, it really launched him into
only 1.35 million.
Yeah, launched him to commercial success, and then also a 7-episode TV show followed this in 2000. I don't know if it was any good. I haven't seen it. Have you?
Lock, Stock?
Yeah. It was called Lock, Stock, ... I
had no idea that had a TV show. I know Snatch has that TV show.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
But I had no idea that Lock, Stock did. The Snatch TV show is good.
Yeah.
With the Rupert Grint.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Weasley.
And the movie stars Jason Fleming, Jason Statham, Sting is in this movie, Dexter Fletcher, Nick Moran. And this one, I didn't realize until going back through his films, Guy Ritchie discovered Jason Statham.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, and just looking at where Jason Statham is now, it's, pretty big deal.
Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah. Most anticipated of the year. And so Statham was a former diver. I didn't know that about him. So that was pretty interesting. But, and so like I said, this was the first time watch for me. It was on Netflix. And so I popped it in and watched it. But Jacob, what's your take on this one?
Like I said, I watched this one after I saw Snatch. And in my opinion, this movie walks so that Snatch can run, as it were.
Yeah.
They're very similar in style. First two movies he made, right? Lock, Stock, and then he made Snatch.
Correct.
Nothing in between. Yeah, so he pretty much kept with the same style. It's got like a wide cast of characters, intertwining plot lines, comedy, Chekhov's gun all over the place, literally.
Yeah. Cheeky bromances as well.
Yeah. And it's just, if one day, I get to direct some movies, I would say that like Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn are like my biggest inspirations. Like their styles
they are similar. Yeah.
I would just, that's my vision for, I don't want to like copy Guy Ritchie, but that's, I just love his style doing things, just big ensemble films with zany, just crossing paths. And, it's very, when you look at the script for Lock, Stock, and for Snatch, it's actually very complex.
Mm-hmm.
Everything fits together.
Yeah, very.
But Vinnie Jones is in this movie. He's also in Snatch. And what was I gonna say? Something about Madonna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was with Madonna, and so he uses a lot of her music in both of these movies. But just all around Lock, Stock. I don't know if I like it as much as Snatch, but it's pretty much the same deal, And I'm like putting the cart before the horse, like talking about Snatch a bunch in comparison.
It's okay.
It laid the groundwork for his career.
Yeah,
Because even all the way up in like King Arthur, you can see pieces of Lock, Stock.
Yeah.
In just the way that it's filmed. And he has a very sort of him and Edgar Wright have sort of a similar like fast cut.
Yeah, very kind of frenetic
style.
And yeah.
But great movie.
Man.
Real inspiration for me.
Yeah. Well, I think going back through his earlier films, it made me both like him more and not necessarily dislike him more, but I guess just see some of his tricks, so to speak, because I think that like his first 4 movies or so feel pretty similar, at times overly similar, just because they are, like you said, dealing with these kind of ensemble groups of like lower class British like thugs, gang members, things like that. And then there's a lot of voiceover, bromances, usually dealing with a situation where they've been ripped off or they've ripped off someone else and they're trying to please some overlord. And so, and which I mean isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think with the exception of Revolver, I think if you haven't seen any of them, I think the enjoyment of the movie almost depends on which one you watch first. Just because I think I watched RocknRolla and Snatch, and then I went and watched Lock, Stock, and Revolver. And I think by the time I got to Lock, Stock, I was almost a little tired of just that style. But I think that clearly this being the first one, I think it is a very clear vision and new vision, I think. And I mean, he draws from people like Tarantino and stuff like that, but it's still clearly made an impact and has inspired a lot of other filmmakers since, like, you're talking about Edgar Wright and Matthew Vaughn. But I mean, I think probably the best part about it is Jason Statham. I think he's pretty fun. And I think this reminds you that he can actually act. He's not just like a Fast and Furious star,
Yeah.
But I agree. It's a pretty fun movie, and I think one thing that, at least in terms of people that I've talked to about Guy Ritchie, it seems like his humor is kind of divisive to some people. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really like it for the most part. I think that
I just think that's how people feel about British humor.
That's
in
fair.
General,
Yeah.
us Americans. That
yeah.
is, it can be a little harsher
Mm-hmm.
than American humor.
Yeah. I think that, but I think that humor is one of my favorite parts about his films, and I think that he, along with the bromances, he does get really good performances, and he finds casts of characters that have really good chemistry, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially with films of this scale in terms of the cast. But that's what he really reminds me of Tony Scott, Ridley Scott's brother, who did Top Gun and True Romance, things like that, in terms of his casting. And we'll get to RocknRolla, but I was shocked how many people are in that movie that are huge now, like Tom Hardy, Idris Elba, people like that. And so I think he's very good at finding interesting little character actors.
Tony Scott didn't do Domino, did he?
He did do Domino, yeah.
Really? That's Ridley Scott's brother.
Yeah. And I mean he's passed away now, but he did Man on Fire, The Hunger, let's see, Crimson Tide.
Because his style is very different from his brother's.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, because Tony Scott kind of went in the like MTV kind of rock star style, whereas Ridley Scott was the more like art housey kind of epic. Yeah. But yeah, I think the best part about this movie and some of the ones we'll be talking about are the performances and just the banter between people. And it's, and of course this does kind of introduce you to the non-linear storytelling with the like narration of people explaining things that have just happened or explaining how something is going to happen, like a heist or whatever. And so that clearly is probably one of the most Guy Ritchie elements of his movies. Like that's in every single one, pretty much. And which, I mean, I think for the most part, I really like. And yeah, it is just it's a solid debut, I think, and pretty impressive in terms of it being a first film.
Yeah, and the thing you brought up about the first 4 movies in the order you watched them in, it's interesting because, I saw Snatch, and then I watched Lock, Stock, and then I watched RocknRolla. And I don't know, I guess it almost seems like that allowed me to enjoy all of them a little bit more than you. Like, I don't know, because I think Snatch is the strongest of his early films.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I see Lock, Stock, I'm like, oh, this this is what laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's very similar, same formula, but I still enjoyed it, because I guess it was only my second time seeing that formula. And then RocknRolla and Revolver are the same formula, but like almost their own thing.
Yeah.
They're not exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting to see them kind of how his style evolves over the years, especially since he has gone pretty big budget now with Sherlock Holmes and King Arthur, and then I guess he's doing a third Sherlock Holmes. This is his next movie, which I'm dying to see.
Yeah,
so
excited.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's not. I guess in terms of specific things, there's not too much about this movie that I would point out as being amazing. It's just a kind of a fun ride, a fun. Although I'm not really crazy about the look of the movie, it's a little too sepia toned and and which I mean, obviously it's a first film, so yeah, and that's where it does kind of feel like it's that '90s music video kind of thing that people like Tony Scott and Michael Bay really adapted pretty hard, like kind of a Bad Boys vibe. But I mean, for the most part, it's not really an issue, especially since it is a first film. It's like, I mean, he's working with what he had.
Yeah, like look at other directors' first films, like Reservoir Dogs, Clerks.
Yeah, it does remind me a lot of Reservoir Dogs. Yeah,
yeah.
And then even something like Duel, which was Spielberg's first film, kind of a pretty low budget, pretty grainy movie, but it's still really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's any thing specific about this movie that it is weird Sting is in this film, but I guess one thing we'll get into with all of his movies is his soundtracks are pretty extensive and pretty a big part of his films. And I think for the most part they work pretty well.
That's sort of what has me make the Matthew Vaughn connection, is the soundtrack thing. I think Matthew Vaughn does a little bit better job of scoring like fight scenes to, like popular music and doing that in a really good way. Like you look at like Kingsman and Kick-Ass, but Guy Ritchie uses a lot of like Dropkick Murphy-esque British Irish pub music with like some classic rock and indie rock thrown in there as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think the Britishness of his films, like with music and with humor, I think is something that really works, and that's just a natural thing. It's not like he chose to do that. Really, it's just where he's coming from. It's almost like in the way that like the Britishness of Harry Potter is such an iconic thing about it, and it really adds to the charm of it. And so I think again, it's another Tarantino kind of Pulp Fiction influence with the soundtrack and having that really make a stamp on the movie. And so it's a solid film, and if you haven't checked it out, or if you like Guy Ritchie, or just you like heist kind of gang member ensembles, you should give it a look. Yeah. Anything else about it you want to mention, or should we get to the big one for you?
Get to
the good stuff,
the crown jewel.
Yeah. All right. Well, out of 5 stars,
I give this one a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's a 4 for me as well. All right. Well, moving on, we can get to Snatch, which was released in 2000. And this one grossed $83.6 million against a $10 million budget. So another hit for him, for sure. And this one stars... Oh, it's produced by Matthew Vaughn. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
I actually did not know that.
Yeah. And it's written and directed by Guy Ritchie. And it stars Benicio del Toro, Dennis Farina, Brad Pitt, obviously. Yeah, Vinny Jones. And this one is set in the London criminal underworld. The film contains two intertwined plots, one dealing with the search of a stolen diamond, the other with a small-time boxing promoter played by Jason Statham, who finds himself under the thumb of a ruthless gangster who is ready and willing to have his subordinates carry out severe and sadistic acts of violence. It's the Wikipedia synopsis there.
It's a little bit of a weird synopsis.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think this one, indulges the most in the British personality, I guess, of Ritchie, and which I think he's able to, in this movie in particular, able to show an appreciation or love for British, or I guess specifically Irish culture, but also make fun of it at times, just in how people talk. Yeah. I mean, obviously Brad Pitt. Yeah, his indiscernible dialect and
his like RV camp.
Yeah,
of urchins.
Yeah, his gypsy camp kind of.
Yeah,
and yeah, so I for him, I guess it is well known that he does play this character who you can't really understand what he's saying. And I turned on the subtitles on Netflix, and you can read it perfectly.
Yeah.
So if you are going to watch it for the first time, I would put on the subtitles. But I think he's amazing in it. I think, and he, like, I think unlike a lot of other big actors, I mean, wasn't huge then, but he's able to blend into the Irish backdrop perfectly. Like you never second guess him for a second that he's not that character, which is pretty hard to do, I think.
Yeah, because Brad Pitt is clean cut American.
Yeah, man. And so yeah, I love him in it. I wish there could have been even more of him in it, though. But I guess this one, it is a little different, where it is dealing with this boxing ring where Brad Pitt can knock somebody out with one punch, no matter what. Yeah, kill him pretty much. And that it kind of all revolves around people gambling on the who's going to win. And again, it's all of the lower class British gang members who gamble and bet and all of that. And this one, I think I enjoy it a fair bit. Maybe like it's slightly more than Lock, Stock. I think Brad Pitt is by far the best thing about it. And I think the humor is, again, very Guy Ritchie, and I think it works very well. I guess the issue in talking about these movies is that kind of the good and the bad things are kind of going to be this similar across most of his movies. So I don't want to sound too repetitive, but I think that a lot of the relationships, I think that the heist or the botched heist where they go into that, that's kind of like sterile bank, or not bank, but gambling ring, I guess.
What is it? It's like a bookie place.
Yeah. And like all of that is fantastic. And then also the gunfight towards the end in the hallway where they bring the fake pistols, and then it all ends up just becoming like absolute chaos. People,
that Russian guy who is actually in John Wick 1.
Oh yeah, that's right. And so yeah, there's some really, I guess another good thing about Guy Ritchie that I like is he has a lot of good gunfights, which are always fun when they're done well. But also he does add a lot of humor to it. So I think, again, he's able to satirize things pretty well, but also clearly have a appreciation and a fondness for what he's dealing with. But yeah, I love the gypsy camp and just all of Brad Pitt's interactions with Jason Statham, because obviously they can never understand what he's saying. And so there's all of the humor with that. And of course, Brad Pitt's mother is burned alive pretty much in her trailer. And so that's a pretty big moment that I think works pretty well. And it kind of shows I think one thing this movie does even more so than the others, is there are moments of pretty shocking violence, I think. Like there's I mean, you don't see anything happen, but there's that moment where they're the three, I guess, robbers are like tied up in that room, and it's like almost insinuating that they're about to be like cut up or something. And so I think this is kind of where the violence of gang life, I think, comes out pretty.
There was that scene that was like I kept switching between what was happening in the what was happening in like that like rabbit being chased around.
Oh yeah, I love the rabbit sequence is amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, and I think one kind of flaw with the movie, maybe if I had seen it at the time, I wouldn't have really thought anything of it. But I really wish Del Toro had been in it more.
Oh yeah,
because I think he's a cool addition to this type of movie. But he kind of shows up at the beginning and then he's out for pretty much the rest of the movie, I think, which is too bad because I think he's good in it for the time that he is. But yeah, I think it is just a very genuine portrayal of people down on their luck and doing anything possible to get back to level ground. And it's like definitely one of the most Guy Ritchie movies. Like it feels him at his most comfortable, I think, and at his most confident, I think, in what he's doing. You know? Yeah,
for sure.
And then there is that one like kind of partial dream sequence towards the end where Brad Pitt is hit in the ring.
Oh yeah.
And then he kind of like falls down into the like this black kind of pool or something, which actually reminded me a lot of Under the Skin. There's the scenes where her Scarlett Johansson's victims fall into this like black goo, and so maybe
I've seen the behind the scenes for that scene in Snatch actually.
Oh really?
It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
It's just a giant glass case of water they drop Brad Pitt into.
Interesting.
And they, CGI it all.
Interesting. Yeah, well maybe Jonathan Glazer was pulling some
maybe
something from
he's a fan of Snatch.
Guy Ritchie, yeah. But yeah, and I think that the twist at the end is pretty good with Brad Pitt and his gang getting the one up on the drug lord or criminal overlord.
The guy that feeds people to the pigs.
Yeah, the pig. Yeah, the pig guy.
Big guy.
And it's I think all of it works well, and I think again it's the idea of him playing things out with flash forwards or flashbacks, and it just having a very fun, satisfying kind of chaos to it. Just people, different narrators jumping in, different characters, different sequences, and all of that. And I think for the most part, it works pretty well. I mean, we'll get to Revolver, but that one doesn't do it as effectively. But I think in this one, it does do it quite well, and it's definitely holds up for sure. And I think this one is on Netflix as well. And so if you haven't seen it, you should give it a look.
Oh yeah.
Would you say what's the movie, if you haven't seen any Guy Ritchie movies, that you should watch first? Snatch? You think?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't know, not Sherlock Holmes. That wouldn't be an easier.
No, Snatch. But then watch Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. Then King Arthur.
It's like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else about Snatch?
Yeah. So you said this movie came out in 2000.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it until 2014. But it quickly became one of my favorite movies. I've seen it maybe 10 to 15 times. The last time I saw it was last year, so it's been a little while. But Guy Ritchie's my top 3 favorite directors. And then out of all the movies I've seen, which I keep a very up-to-date Letterboxd, so I know it's about 1,025. This is number 2.
Of the films you watched or logged on there?
yeah, this is my number 2 favorite.
Nice.
Of all the movies I've ever seen.
Nice.
It's just, I don't know what it is. I just love this movie.
Yeah, no.
It's number 2.
Well, I mean, and you love heist movies as well.
Oh yeah, heists are the shit.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
like heists are, I don't know, like the idea of like a team they're all like caricatures and they all have like a role and pull off a heist. I don't know. It gets me.
Yeah.
You know, and I even liked Hurricane Heist.
I haven't seen that. I would like to. Yeah.
The final sequence is real Fast and Furious. You know,
oh yeah.
It's produced by those people.
Yeah, it seemed a little Fast and Furious. So,
but yeah. Number 1 is Mulholland Drive, just in case anyone's curious.
Nice.
But
everybody should get a Letterboxd account. It's like a social media site for cinephiles, and you can follow us.
That's great.
And so yeah, you should get one. But
I'm at Vinny Vidivici.
I'm at Henry Fairdy, and the Film Buds logo is my profile picture, so you can find me pretty easily.
Mine is Emmett from the Lego Movie on fire.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, weird question. Did you name your username after the Hives album? There's a Hives. Is that ringing any bells? No. Okay. Well, that's so weird because the British rock band The Hives has an album named like Vinny Vici or something.
Vinny Vici.
Something like that. I was like, Jake, is that Jake? So, but
I've just had that username for forever. You know, I saw, I conquered. I feel like just embodies.
Oh yeah.
Like I came here to watch films. I came here to play video games.
Yeah.
Came here to consume all the media, conquer all of it.
Yeah.
This is how I feel.
Hey man, you're doing it. You're doing it right now. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I just want to make sure because I was like that immediately reminded me of you. So I just want to make sure. But
So this is what I mean when I say Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels walked so that Snatch could run. Snatch just goes way harder on the humor. It goes way harder on the nonlinear editing. It goes way harder on the complex plot threads. Just everything that was good about Lock, Stock is just 10 times here. And it's just a brilliant movie. You know, like it is very similar, but I just think it's like Lock, Stock 2.0. It's like a better version of that movie. And that's why I think everyone should see that first. You know, see that and then go back and watch Lock, Stock and compare the two. But, you know, most of the time you'd tell people watch things in chronological order. No, I think you should watch Snatch first and then watch Lock, Stock. Because, you know, like the well, I don't know. I don't want to say spoilers, but
no. I mean, it's old. You can spoil it.
Okay. Well, you know, like the end of Lock, Stock when they get rid of the guns and they found out that they're worth like $1 million or whatever, and then the end of Snatch is like they find out the diamond, like the dog is eating it, so that's kind of similar. But I love Snatch for its like caricatures and its complex plot threads and its nonlinear editing. I actually did several school projects on Snatch.
Nice.
Several papers and did several presentations. And I did one on nonlinear editing for an editing course. And I used like a few of the scenes, like for example, several movies do this. And it's a strange editing technique that I think the casual viewer would not think about. But there's a scene where Jason Statham's character is explaining to his partner what the thing with the hares, what was it called? Where they chase after the rabbits.
The race? I mean, like how they're being.
Yeah, but it's called something. And he's explaining to him what that is.
Yeah.
How to do it when they're on their way to the Pikey camp.
Yeah.
And he like starts telling him, and then it like cuts to them in the car. And he's like on his next sentence, and then it cuts to them walking through a field, and then he's like continuing it, and it's like, you know, he not say anything for like 20 minutes while they were like getting out of the car, and then he continues his thought. And so I like that sort of weird nonlinear editing that you wouldn't think of on a first watch, but then you're like, oh, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's just kind of weird, you know. And I love how all the plots fit together in like stupid ways, like when that guy just like casually throws like a milkshake out of his window or whatever, but then it hits the people behind him and they're actually
Yeah.
doing something important. And then like when Benicio del Toro's character gets locked in the back of that van just because that guy did like a bad parking job and like trapped them in there while they were like robbing the bookie place. And I just like, I love that because none of it's intentional.
Mhm.
You know, it's all just a bunch of accidents.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
Yeah,
And,
he's good at creating like funny accidents in his
Yeah.
movies, you know, coincidences.
And then Benicio del Toro's character is the guy that gets like killed, right? The bag over his head.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the end is great too. You know, when Brad Pitt's character, as you said, gets like a one up on everybody and then kills that gangster with a shotgun, or his people do.
Yeah.
Whatever. And yeah, I just I love everything about it. I think it's hilarious. I think it's very well done. The whole scene where Vinnie Jones' character is killing the Russian guy, but he won't die and he has to keep shooting him.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And yeah,
good.
it's just all around. I think I don't want to say it's Ritchie's best movie because I kind of feel like you have to split his movies into his early work and his later work because
Yeah.
they're so different.
Yeah.
Like Sherlock Holmes is an amazing movie, but it's more like contemporary Ritchie,
Yeah.
where like Snatch and Lock, Stock are like early Ritchie.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's the best of his early films. But I might say something like Sherlock Holmes is the best of his later films. You know. But yeah, Snatch, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's my
Your favorite.
my favorite actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that as well.
Yeah. Oh, did you hear? I know one of your other favorites, Kristen Stewart. People want her to be alongside Robert Pattinson as Catwoman in the new Batman. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
I think that'd be great.
yeah, I'd be down for that. Oh, and one more thing: the end scene with the dog, where they're chasing the dog, and then there's the scene of them driving away, and they're passing by all of the other kind of ensemble characters who are all being arrested, even though Jason Statham and Stephen Graham, who's a really interesting character actor, who's I guess pops up in a lot of Guy Ritchie movies, but that's a really good, another very Guy Ritchie kind of iconic type of sequence where you see some criminals getting away with it, others not, and there's kind of a cheekiness to it.
And I like that joke where they're trying to figure out who's going to replace their fighter after Brad Pitt kills the guy in one punch, and he's like, you know, what about Tommy the Gun or like Mad Dog, whatever his name is, and he's like, oh, like he's like, this guy went insane and Tommy the Gun shot himself. And their names are like their fates, and I was like, that's silly.
Yeah. All right. Well, out of 5 stars.
5.
All right. I'll go 4.5.
5 stars. I think what Henry meant to say is 5 stars.
Yeah, I meant to say that. Thank you. So, all right. Well, I guess we can move on, and let's get to Revolver, which was released 5 years later in 2005, and this one stars Jason Statham once again, Ray Liotta, Vincent Pastore, Mark Strong, and this one it centers around a group of crime and professional gang members, and I guess this one also has a gambling casino kind of aspect to it.
It's a lot of great actors for a not so great movie.
Yeah. And so this one I would say by far is my least favorite, and is probably his only bad movie, I think, of all the ones that he's done. So I just watched this one yesterday, and it has all of the elements that make a Guy Ritchie movie good, but they're just not done that well, or they're done they're the least effective in this one.
Yeah, I think it's no coincidence that this was the last movie that really stuck to that formula. Because I think maybe Guy Ritchie was like getting tired of it at that point,
Yeah.
and so he kind of just like threw in the towel.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of just like, the if it's not broke, don't fix it. The formula's been working for him, so he just sort of didn't try as hard at this one, and then it failed, and I guess that's maybe shocked him, or so he changed his formula.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Transformers 5, you can just see Michael Bay getting tired of it. But yeah, so this one, it has all of the elements, but it's just a mess, and it's not a really interesting mess. It's just kind of dull and a little obnoxious. Like it just beats you over the head with these narrations and these catchphrases that it's hoping that I guess makes certain themes more apparent or something, but it just doesn't convey anything that well. And it's but I mean, I think the performances are pretty solid. Like Statham is good, and Ray Liotta is he's pretty typical Ray Liotta, but he's good in it.
Oh, I guess I should clarify it. RocknRolla, it was after this one. So.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the last one of those early ones, but yeah. Surprised they didn't cast Jason Statham as Sherlock Holmes.
I'd watch that, And so yeah, this one it's just you don't really care about anything that's going on, and also the tone is a good bit more serious than his past films, and so there's not the humor that really helps liven things up or helps you feel at least a little sympathy towards these criminals. And this being the fourth film to use this same style, it just feels pretty tired. Even if it was done well, I think it would still feel kind of dated and I'm toasted. I don't know what the word is. just not toasted. Just not very effective. And but it's it's definitely not my favorite of his. But I think the performances do kind of save it at times. But it's very forgettable, and I think that clearly it's him. Even Guy Ritchie himself growing tired of his own style. Yeah. So, and you mentioned RocknRolla. That is kind of the like midway point between his low budget and big budget movies in terms of the style. I mean, the cast of that movie, the size, and so that's clearly him. Like the midway point between the two big halves of his career.
Because what came out after RocknRolla?
Sherlock.
Yeah. Because Sherlock is what got him into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows Sherlock Holmes. The character and the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what got Guy Ritchie up in Hollywood heights.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I just don't really see what Guy Ritchie was really trying to do with this one, other than just put something out, which maybe is what he was trying to do. But there are people like Mark Strong, who then appears again in RocknRolla and Sherlock.
Yeah, almost unrecognizable in Sherlock.
Yeah. And is there
also in Kingsman, Matthew Vaughn's movie?
Yeah. Oh, and actually one little fact here. So it did perform poorly at the box office, and I guess I didn't say the box office numbers officially. So its box office was 6.7 million. It doesn't look like it lists a budget on here, but
that is abysmal.
Yeah, it's nothing close to what he's been doing previous to this.
Wasn't there like an Al Pacino movie a few years back that only made like $18 in the box office or something?
I think so. Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah. And actually, and one little bit about this movie. So apparently, in 2007, a reworked version was released to a limited number of U.S. theaters. I don't know if there's a way to watch that movie, but it doesn't seem to have made that much of an impact on people liking it more. But
this and like RocknRolla were like the last I don't know, British films he made, like, because obviously Sherlock Holmes is a British film, but he made it for Americans,
Mhm.
whereas I think like Lock, Stock, and Snatch were made for, it was like British cinema.
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, it does. I mean, it does feel very, very British oriented, which again, I like that about it, but it just doesn't do anything else that well.
Yeah,
for the-
because Sherlock Holmes is more like Americanized,
oh,
for
for sure.
like these early films use a lot of slang and a lot of like British locales and euphemisms and heavy accents and stuff that it's very exclusively British.
Yeah. And I guess there is the villain in this movie that is kind of or one of the villains who's this kind of clean cut, kind of fancy, hoity toity kind of guy. And which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like that trend is kind of old. Even, I mean, obviously this came out like about 15 years ago, but going back and watching it, it feels a little stale. But I think that, yeah, I think Jason Statham definitely saves it. And again, this is a movie that reminds you that he can do other things other than just be a kind of normal action star.
It's funny. Snatch was the second movie I'd ever seen Jason Statham in. The first one was Crank.
Oh yeah, I think it may have. I think the first one I saw was Crank as well.
So I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm not. I should say I'm not a huge Jason Statham fan. I prefer him in Guy Ritchie movies. As in terms of his action films, I'm not crazy about him. Like I won't seek out Jason Statham action movies just because he's in it. But I think he has, similar to someone like Vin Diesel or The Rock, he has a good presence on screen, I think, even if his performance isn't that good.
Yeah.
But I just wish he would go back and do more like character pieces like this, But I guess he got to go to where the money is, right? You know, the big bucks.
Good old, The Rock knows something about that.
Man, he's loving life.
But you're right. The Rock does have a great on-screen presence.
Mm-hmm.
He's just looks like he really wants to be there.
Yeah,
he's no Adam Sandler.
Well, I would want to be there too if I was getting paid, $20 million a movie or something.
Well, yeah, but
but I think he does.
You look at someone like Adam Sandler, who's like,
it's true.
This is a free vacation. Or whatever.
yeah.
Then he admits it.
And yeah, well, I was saying before the show, I was rewatching some of the Fast and Furious movies, and Vin Diesel is really starting to grow on me. Like I haven't really been a fan of his for a while, but there's something about him I like.
It's funny. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything except Guardians of the Galaxy and the Babysitter.
Oh yeah, classic film.
First movie I ever saw him in was The Babysitter. That was like back when I guess it was funny to have these like NFL players or action movie stars in these kids films.
Yeah, the Rock was in
the
Tooth Fairy. Yep.
Yeah,
classic film.
But yeah, that was the first I'd ever seen of Vin Diesel, and didn't see him in anything else until he was the voice of Groot.
Mm-hmm. And what a role, right?
Yeah. He takes it real seriously though.
Yeah,
he gives it his all.
Yeah. But yeah, I think of a lot of the big action stars. I think Statham is probably my least favorite, at least in terms of his action movies, not necessarily the more performance based roles. But
sure, it's not like Dolph Lundgren or something.
Nah. Although, man, it's been ages since I've watched a Dolph Lundgren movie. But
he was in Aquaman, right?
He was.
Was
yeah, that's true. I guess he wasn't that
crazy to me.
Yeah, he wasn't great in it. So
I just thought it was strange hearing him walk around and talk like a normal person. Yeah. So yeah, not much else to say about this one. It's just it was a bit of a slog to watch, but I'm glad I've finally gone through all of Guy Ritchie's movies now. What's your favorite Ray Liotta performance?
I mean, I guess Goodfellas is an obvious one. Although his role is small, I really liked him in
B movie.
classic. I liked him in Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I like him a lot in that. And yeah, I mean, really any work he does with Scorsese, I think is good.
I've got a little bit of a betrayal to myself. I have not seen every Brad Pitt movie. You know,
which ones have you not seen?
Interview with the Vampire, and what's California? I think it was.
California. I think yeah. I haven't seen that one either. But I mean, for the most part, Ray Liotta, he's good, but I think at times he's too typecast, and it does get a little tiring sometimes seeing him and just another gangster over and over and over. But there are a few kind of one-off performances that he gives that I like, and I do like him a lot in Killing Them Softly, just because he does kind of play the guy that is the one being beaten up this time around, rather than just being the tough guy. So.
Yeah, I think Scorsese brings out the best in him.
Yeah,
just like Scorsese brings out the best in
everybody.
Leo.
In everybody, man. He brings out the best in everybody.
DiCaprio.
Yeah. Man, we got to get the Irishman. They've got to put that thing
coming,
out.
man.
I know. They've but all right, well, anything else about Revolver?
No, I don't really have anything to say about it.
Yeah. All right, well, it's a 2 out of 5 for me. Not my favorite.
Sure.
Yeah, 2. Fair. So, all right, well, let's move on. And we can get to RocknRolla, which came out 3 years later in 2008. And this one, like I was saying earlier, the cast of this movie is crazy, especially for the time that it came out in terms of where people were in their careers. But it has Gerard Butler, another person who you're reminded that he can actually act, not just being 300 or playing for keeps,
The Gladiator. That was Gerard Butler. No, that was Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Might be.
But it also, it also has Tom Wilkinson, Thandie Newton, Mark Strong, Idris Elba, Tom Hardy, Gemma Arterton, and Toby Kebbell, as well as Ludacris, Jeremy Piven. Just the list goes on and on. And this one is phone call. Is dealing with another mob boss and people kind of trying to trick the higher ups into getting them rich or trying to take power from them. And so this one I think is on par with my favorite of Guy Ritchie. I think it's one of his most fun, his most well written, most well casted movies. And I think it's very funny. I love all of the heist sequences. Like I love the one where Tom Hardy and Idris Elba are being chased through, and Gerard Butler are being chased through the suburbs of I guess maybe London or something. And then Idris Elba gets on a scooter, that's amazing. And also just to see actors like him and Tom Hardy being in a role like this is great.
Yeah, this is before Idris Elba became Mr. Serious.
Yeah. And he's going to be in Hobbs and Shaw as the villain.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a lot of fun. I love the rock and roll kind of MTV personality to it, and the idea of another example of Guy Ritchie showing an appreciation and love for the kind of carefree, drug-hazed rock and roll life, but also showing it as a cautionary tale in a way. I mean, obviously there's not deep commentary in it, but it's at least an interesting look at a slice of modern day life. And I think Toby Kebbell, he's another person that has grown on me a lot. I think he's quite good for the most part. I think he has a couple bad films under his belt, but I really like him a lot in this as the RocknRolla, the titular RocknRolla. So
was this the first movie that Guy Ritchie made after his split with Madonna?
Possibly. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
That might have been Revolver though.
Yeah.
Maybe that was why it was so bad.
Yeah, probably. That's like Tim Burton, splitting from Helena, and now he's just going downhill. If you lose him, you're done.
How was that? How was that Dumbo?
It was all right.
Yeah.
But Tim Burton, he hasn't lost his mind. It's just that, in a way, I wish he would, and he would just do something crazy. But
He hasn't pulled any Tarantino, Ridley Scott nonsense.
nah. But he's like Miss Peregrine's Home, Dumbo. They're just all kind of middle of the road films. None of them are bad. It's just he's really lost something.
Speaking of Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it looks good.
New trailer just came out today, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I controversially hated The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
So maybe this, it looks good.
I have hopes for it.
Maybe
for
this will
sure.
put me back on the Tarantino train.
Yeah. Now, have you considered watching the extended miniseries of The Hateful Eight on Netflix?
Oh yeah, I did see that. That's interesting. I thought, is that just all the cut stuff in there, or
I think it has a little extra footage in there as well, but it's cut up into a four episode miniseries.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this one I do like the kind of chaos to it, the iconic Guy Ritchie controlled chaos, and just the amount of characters, and that he's able to make a lot of them memorable and funny, and again, like what you're saying earlier, with characters intertwining in weird ways. He's very good at that, and having it feel natural and fun. And I think that some of the twists towards the end of another iconic thing is characters getting their one up on their leaders or whatever, and I guess the like a sleight of hand in a way. And yeah, well, what do you think of this one?
It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm a little fuzzy, but I do remember it being very good. I remember enjoying it, not as much as Snatch, but close.
Mhm.
I was like, this is another true Ritchie film here.
Yeah.
Ludacris is in it. Got to get those rappers in those movies.
Yeah.
You got to get.
Yeah, he's in Fast and Furious now.
Gucci Mane is in Spring Breakers.
Mhm.
Common is in John Wick Chapter 2.
I can't stand Common. I don't know why. I can't
Common?
stand him. Can't stand him.
It's just a common guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of normal guy.
He just has this kind of annoying bravado to him, or this just an overconfidence that really is tiring for some reason. I don't know why.
Beautiful scene in John Wick Chapter 2 when they're firing silenced pistols at each other in that subway.
That's not bad. Oh yeah.
And the extras in the John Wick movies are brilliant at not reacting to anything.
Great performances, yeah.
But yeah. Ludacris, I actually think is decent in
yeah, he's not bad.
From what little scenes over the years I've caught in the Fast and Furious movies, I haven't seen any of them, but and in RocknRolla he's decent. And Gerard Butler, I enjoy Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
First movie I ever saw Gerard Butler in, because I've not seen 300.
No? You got to check it out.
Right. I know I've missed a lot of pretty big movies over the years, but the first movie I ever saw him in was was it The Bounty Hunter?
Bounty Hunter. That sounds familiar. I don't know if I've seen that though.
Jennifer Aniston.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I think. Yeah. And Gamer, that movie.
Gamer. Mm-hmm. And he was just in that weather, Day After Tomorrow movie.
Oh yeah,
Geostorm. Yeah. Yeah, so he's clearly doing great work these days, but I do like him a lot in this, and I wish, again, similar to Statham, I wish he would go back and do films like this more often, because I think he actually has some chops under his belt.
That Geostorm, that just reminded me of Hurricane Heist.
Yeah.
Again.
For sure.
And there's this scene at the beginning of Hurricane Heist where one of the kids grows up to become this like meteorologist because he has like a vendetta against hurricanes because when they were kids, a hurricane like killed their father and they're like cowering in their house and then the hurricane is over them and it makes like a giant skull in the sky.
I have to watch this.
You should watch it. It's great. Yeah. It's brilliant.
So yeah, and I think he works well with Tom Hardy and some of the other, like Thandie Newton is another interesting character actor in this, who's gone on to do some good work, and I guess she was in Solo, and I guess is she in Westworld?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I need to watch season 2 of that.
Yeah, I've only seen a couple episodes, so I'm pretty behind.
Oh, you got to get on that, man.
Now, are you a Game of Thrones fan?
So my girlfriend watched all of Game of Thrones in 3 weeks so that she could watch the final season with one of her friends. And she was like, I want to rewatch it all because I didn't really understand what was happening the first time. So she's got me watching that with her. I was never particularly interested, but she's gotten me watching that with her. So I've seen one episode of Game of Thrones.
Nice. And yeah, I just really had a lot of fun. I was shocked at how fun I had watching this movie, or how much fun I had watching it. And I guess Gemma Arterton is another actress who kind of pops up in
sounds
things.
Familiar.
She was in what's the vampire movie with where they're shooting arrows at witches? Witch Hunter. Hansel and Gretel. Witch Hunters.
I don't know if that's where I recognize her from.
And she's let's see what's other things.
Pull up her filmography here.
Yeah, so she was in.
It's gonna bother me.
She was in Clash of the Titans, Quantum of Solace, Byzantium. She's gonna be in the new Kingsman film. So, and she was also she voiced one of the rabbits in the Watership Down miniseries on Netflix.
Is she not in Kingsman? Like the first couple?
Doesn't seem so. No. But I think she's a kind of a cool little.
Where's her picture?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
But yeah, I like when she pops up. But it's fun, and another good soundtrack. Some really good, like we were saying, some good heist sequences, and I think this is really shows you how his style can work really well or really poorly, like in Revolver. So
I just remembered something that I did a bunch of research on Guy Ritchie when I was doing one of my projects in school, and I just remembered that Matthew Vaughn's dad financed like Guy Ritchie's career because Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn knew each other. And Matthew Vaughn was like, hey, you should give this guy a shot. And his dad owned something and provided the money to make Lock, Stock. And the editor that he uses was also related to Matthew Vaughn in some way. And man, I wish I could remember what I researched, but Matthew Vaughn and Guy Ritchie are very connected.
Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense for him producing Snatch, So
yeah, it's funny they are very connected because they're both huge inspirations to me, but not necessarily because of that reason. But I think maybe they pull from each other.
Yeah, in some ways. For sure. I think if I had to choose, I would choose Guy Ritchie over Matthew Vaughn. I'm kind of hit and miss on Vaughn.
I mean, he did X-Men as well, First Class and Days of Future Past.
No, he only did First Class.
Oh.
Bryan Singer did.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Good old Mr. Singer.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame. So it's just a really kind of it's a film that seems to have been kind of swept under the rug. I never really hear anyone talking about it, and I'm glad we did this because I don't know if I would have gotten to it anytime soon, and so it's definitely one that really stuck with me, and I would really like to go back and rewatch. So yeah, anything else about it?
I probably need to rewatch it as well.
Yeah, you should, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go 4.5 for this one.
Yeah, from what I remember, I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can move on into the kind of second half of Guy Ritchie's career, the more mainstream. And so he released Sherlock Holmes 1 year later in 2009. And this one grossed $524 million against a $90 million budget. So pretty big hit.
2009.
And I guess I should here. Hang on. Let me get the what was
years
the
ago.
the RocknRolla grossed $25 million against the budget of $18 million. So not really a hit for Ritchie, but I think it did pretty well critically. So I guess that's one thing. But anyways, so Sherlock Holmes stars Robert Downey Jr., Jude Law, Rachel McAdams, Mark Strong, Eddie Marsan. Scores by Hans Zimmer, another great Hans Zimmer score. Jacob, what's your thoughts on Sherlock Holmes?
I really like Sherlock Holmes. As I said before, I think this really propelled Guy Ritchie into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
This is when, if you care about, that sort of thing, if you care about who directs what, this is when people started to really know who Guy Ritchie was, and they were like, who directed Sherlock Holmes? Oh, Guy Ritchie, and who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine anyone else directing, like anyone else taking like Sherlock Holmes and adapting it in a modern way. I can't imagine anyone else doing this but Guy Ritchie, because you have like Mark Gatiss made the Sherlock Holmes BBC series, but that was like sort of an alternate reality Sherlock Holmes in the modern day sort of thing. And Guy Ritchie sort of did like a period piece, contemporary Sherlock Holmes style thing.
Yeah.
That was very different. I've heard some people say that they dislike it, like some diehard Sherlock Holmes fans say they dislike it because they don't want Sherlock Holmes to be an action hero.
Fuck off.
They'd rather him be like a detective.
Yeah.
But I know my girlfriend is a diehard Sherlock Holmes fan. Sherlock Holmes and Star Trek are like her. She'd die for those things.
Yeah.
So and she loves them.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, when will Guy Ritchie give us Sherlock Holmes 3? She was saying that for years.
December 2021, man.
And now that RDJ's contract is up with Marvel, he can just make as many Sherlock Holmes movies as he wants.
Yeah.
His next big series.
Yeah. Did you hear his sorry to veer off, but did you hear his payout or his supposed payout for Endgame?
Wasn't it like 800 million, or am I way off?
That was 100 million.
Oh no, I'm way off.
Yeah. So apparently he was supposed to have earned about 75 million with all the residuals for Infinity War, and for Endgame he was supposed to get upwards of 100 million.
Jeez,
it's disgusting.
Wow.
I mean, he obviously
maybe I was thinking like 80 million, not 800 million.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously he started kind of help propel Marvel, but still, that's too much money. And so I'm curious as to what his Sherlock Holmes 3 salary is going to be.
Highest paid actor in Hollywood.
Yeah, I guess along with The Rock. So
yeah, but I like the development of Sherlock Holmes as an action hero.
As do I.
And I think everyone in this movie is perfectly cast. Even Rachel McAdams as why am I blanking on her name?
She is Irene Adler.
Irene. Mark Strong is great as the villain, Lord Blackwood. Eddie Marsden, who was also a favorite of Edgar Wright. Even though he's not really in it very much as Lestrade, he's a good Lestrade.
Mm-hmm.
And fun fact, Lestrade in the BBC series, he was also in the original Death at a Funeral.
Oh yeah,
just a bit of trivia there.
I love Death at a Funeral, the original.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, I rewatched it just a few days ago, and it had been a while since I had seen it, and I think it's pretty solid, and I think similar to Lock, Stock, it is just an impressive kind of reimagining of this type of genre or with this type of character. And I agree, everyone I think is perfectly cast. I think Jude Law and Robert
Jude Law
Downey
is
Jr.
great.
are like a perfect pair. Like of
My
all,
girlfriend loves Jude Law.
yeah, who doesn't, man? Who
Yeah,
doesn't?
right,
Yeah,
right.
love Jude. But I think the two of them are my favorite Holmes and Watson. Of
Sure,
all
it's
the,
not Will Ferrell and
I really want to watch that. I know it's supposed to be terrible, but I really would like to watch it just to see for myself.
yeah.
I probably will soon. Yeah, I think they're amazing together. I like Rachel McAdams. And I think that, I mean, I guess the villain in this is the kind of, he has the quote unquote ability to control people's minds. And it's all about,
Yeah, I actually really liked that that magical aspect to it.
yeah,
Kind of similar to the Hounds of Baskerville BBC episode,
Yeah.
where it turned out to just be like this hallucinogenic gas, but people thought it was like these monster dogs.
yeah, for sure. And so I think that works pretty well for the most part. My issue is, and it's almost similar to something like Snatch or something, but I think if I had seen it before the second one, I would have liked it even more. But having,
Well, yeah.
but yeah, but I think having seen the second one a few times before this, I think the vision of this one and the style of this one seems a little limited to me. Like it's not full on, where they're not confident enough to where they can really go all out with the Guy Ritchie-ness of it, the weird quirkiness of it. Because I think for the most part, the story and how it plays out, even just in terms of direction, feels pretty standard for the most part, in my opinion. But I think there are some pretty good standout sequences. I like the boxing is great. I love the sequence where they're at the shipyard or harbor, and there's like they're trying to run away from these logs being flying around them.
Oh yeah.
And so I like all of that stuff, but I think the last act kind of drags for me because it's kind of predictable, and it just doesn't have enough Guy Ritchie-ness to me that I think it does kind of, it feels long. I think that when I watched
the
it,
second one definitely does have more Ritchie-ness.
yeah,
Richness.
yeah. And so I think in terms of the runtime, I think that it's about 2 hours, and when I watched it, I paused it at about an hour and a half mark to go and do something, and I couldn't believe that there was still 30 minutes left. Like it feels kind of long for the most part, but I really like. I think like most of his movies, the performances save it. I think the score is amazing, and it's just a great start to a series. And I think it's I guess we'll see with Aladdin, but I think it's an auteur director taking on a big movie and still maintaining at least some of his personal style on it,
I also appreciate the fact that the gimmick, the really cool gimmick of Sherlock thinking about everything he's gonna do and then doing it in real time, he doesn't overuse that.
No,
he only
doesn't.
uses it, I think, twice, two or three times in the first movie, and maybe one or two times in the second movie. And when he does it in the second movie, they both kind of subvert expectations. Like the first time he uses it in the second movie, before he can do anything, the lady hits him with the knife.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, of course, it's Moriarty, and they're both doing it, and then he flips him over the edge. And so I appreciate that, because he could use that for like every fight, but he doesn't, because it's a really cool thing, but no one wants to see it done like 50 times in a single movie. But I do appreciate it, because that is like one of the coolest things about those movies.
I agree. And I think that it's just, and I think Robert Downey Jr., I think people, obviously people love him for Iron Man, but I think there is still kind of at least with over the years, how I've talked to people, they like him as Iron Man, but there's never really that much praise to his actual performance. Like he's that character, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I think he is, and I think rewatching Sherlock Holmes, as well as I can't remember some other Downey Jr. movie I watched, but he is just a very good actor. Like I think I mean, obviously Tropic Thunder, he's incredible. And so that'll always be my favorite. But I think that he's really, really good as Sherlock Holmes. Like he's instantly that character.
Yeah,
and that's pretty hard to do,
Iron Man and Sherlock are definitely what he's known for.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I think even having being, I guess, most known for Iron Man, I think he really makes the Sherlock Holmes performance and that character pretty unique. And his chemistry with Jude Law is perfect. And I think Jude Law works really well as Watson. And they both have a great charm to them. And it's another kind of bromance, Ritchie bromance. And so yeah, I think it's pretty solid, but I like the second one more. And we'll get to that. But
and between the BBC series and the Ritchie films, all four of those guys eventually made it into the MCU.
That's right.
Both Sherlocks and both Watsons.
That's weird, yeah. Man, like everybody in Hollywood is in Marvel now. Like it's ridiculous, but
unfortunately, Jude Law's character wasn't part of the main.
No,
he was just in Captain Marvel and probably won't be coming back. But,
yes. I wish he would, but
Martin Freeman, we see him in Infinity War and
Black Panther.
Yeah, and
Cumberbatch is obviously,
War, I think. Yeah,
Doctor Strange, so he's in it quite a bit. But
yeah, you got RDJ and BC right there on the battlefield together.
Yeah,
Sherlock and Sherlock. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I'm gesticulating.
So I think it's solid. I just think there are some lulls in it. And I at times I wish it had been maybe a little more creative, but I still think it's a very fun movie and one that I'll definitely go back to routinely, and yeah. Anything else about this one you want to talk about?
No, I rewatched it and the second one about a month ago. The first one's on Netflix, and then I bought the second one on Prime just because I watched the first one and I was like, well, now I gotta watch the second one.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I guess he does kind of reuse this style in King Arthur in terms of modernizing a historical or character and trying to make something historical cool and modern and like an MTV version, So yeah, it's a solid movie, and it holds up well, and I'm dying for the third one. This all of the trilogies and franchises out there, this is the one I really want to continue. One of the few I wish they would just keep making more of.
Because the second one it's got that cliffhanger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
The end ?
Yeah. So I'm dying for that'll be one of my most anticipated of 2021 for sure.
Yeah, we get John Wick 4 and Sherlock Holmes 3 that year.
Right? Oh man, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Gonna be a big year.
I hear that Marvel is courting Keanu Reeves or something.
I've been hearing
DC too, actually. Both of them.
Yeah.
I think who is it that DC wants him to play? I don't remember. I don't think Marvel wants him for like Adam Warlock or something.
Okay. Are you on board with Robert Pattinson as Batman?
I mean, I'm not gonna like shit all over him like people have been doing. I mean, I'm kind of in the camp of like I just want to wait and see.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a really weird choice to me, weirder than like Ben Affleck and like Heath Ledger, because people were up in arms about that. Like I never had a problem with Ben Affleck. I was like,
I like Ben Affleck.
I was like, whatever, Batfleck. But I do think it's a weird choice. I just hope it doesn't turn out like Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh God, I hope not. I hope not. Yeah.
But Robert Pattinson is like, if you check out the indie stuff he's been in,
it's great.
He can act.
Yeah,
he's a great actor.
And he has the is it The Lighthouse, that the new Robert Eggers movie, the guy who did The Witch movie coming out with Willem Dafoe. It's supposed to be fantastic. So
he gets a lot of the same shit that Kristen Stewart gets. Twilight really just tanked their careers. Like, early on, like no one will ever let them live that down.
Yeah.
Because Kristen and Robert, both great actors, no reason why they can't perform well in these roles.
Mhm.
And I'd love to see a Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart duo, Catwoman,
I'd be down.
Batman. I really enjoy Kristen Stewart's chemistry with Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that he's playing Lex Luthor in the DC universe.
Yeah.
I could have seen Jesse Eisenberg as the Riddler, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
He's just kind of
yeah. Well, anyways, all right. Well, anything else about Sherlock Holmes?
no.
All right. Well, I mean, it did also. It got nominated for Best Original Score and Best Art Direction at the Academy Awards. So no Best Picture, but at least got some notice. And it seems to be, and it got pretty strong reviews critically, and most people I talked to seem to enjoy it. Although it is even though it did do well financially, it's one of those franchises that not many people seem to talk about now, even though it's not that old. But so it's kind of under the radar a little bit. But I think there's still definitely a following for it for sure.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. All right. Well, out of 5?
4.
Yeah, 4
4
for
out
me
of
as
5.
well. Okay, so moving on to the second Sherlock Holmes film, which was released 2 years later. And Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, it grossed $545.4 million against a $125 million budget. So a bit of a bigger budget, but still about the same amount of money grossed, but still definitely a hit. And it got pretty good reviews again critically. And so this one also stars one of my favorite actresses, Noomi Rapace, who's in the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and she was also in Prometheus, and she's been in a bunch of indie movies over the years, but and also has Rachel McAdams as well as what's his name, Jared Harris, Stephen Fry is in it as well. So a lot of great British actors, and of course brings back Downey Jr. and Jude Law. But yeah, this one again is kind of on par with my favorite of Guy Ritchie's. I think it's weird enough, or it feels Guy Ritchie enough, but it also is on a pretty big scale money wise. And I really like all of the action is probably his best action, or some of his best action, like the like casino or in sequence where they're running across like from different floors and jumping out windows, and all of that stuff I love. And then also the sequence towards the end with the cannons firing through the forest and all the trees shattering and all of that in slow motion is amazing.
Have you heard of a YouTube company called Rooster Teeth?
I don't think so.
No, but they're pretty big. They started back in like the early 2000s. Like Achievement Hunter is like one of their like offshoots, and Funhouse is another offshoot. But they're pretty big on YouTube. I'm sure some of the viewers would know who they are. But this guy that works for them did all of the slow motion on Game of Shadows.
Oh, nice.
And he has a separate channel called the Slow Mo Guys, where him and his friend just like break shit in slow motion and things
Nice.
like that. Like break like a giant water balloon in slow motion. Or
Yeah.
fire
High art.
a gun underwater in slow motion. But yeah, he did all of the slow motion work on that, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Because I had been watching their YouTube stuff since I was in like middle school, and then I found out that he had done the slow mo work.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think he did it for the first movie too, but there wasn't as much in the first movie. But yeah, it's flawless slow motion work.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, this one I really like, not only because I like Noomi Rapace, but I think her gypsy character is a fun addition, or they make a fun trio, I think. And I wish they would
fits the role well.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of wish that trio would continue in the latter films, or in upcoming films. But I think it's the humor similar to RocknRolla. It's one of his most funny films, and I think that the plot is a good bit more interesting than the first one, because it's dealing with like sabotage and like starting wars and all of that. And I love all of that stuff, and I think it works pretty well. But again, similar to the first one, I think the third act goes on a little too long and kind of gets too heavily into plot and a little too serious. But I think the first 45 minutes are incredible. And then I mean, I do like the latter half of the movie as well, but I really like the part where you first encounter Sherlock Holmes, where he's hiding against the wall as the like he has the different patterns of the wall and the fabrics. Like that's amazing. I love that stuff.
Some foreshadowing.
Yeah. And just the Sherlock Holmes humor in this is fantastic, and I can't stress enough how much I love Jude Law and Downey Jr. together. And I mean, but sadly, I guess you lose Rachel McAdams pretty early on in this one.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was going to turn out that like she wasn't actually dead, and he had been like hiding her somewhere or like to get leverage. And maybe that'll be true in the third one. But yeah, they just kind of get her out of there.
Yeah. Do you think it's because she didn't want to be in it, or do you think that was a creative choice?
I don't know.
It's hard to say because she's in it so little.
I haven't really read anything about Rachel McAdams' opinions on this. But
yeah.
The last thing I can remember her and that I saw was Night at the Museum 2, Battle for the Smithsonian.
Here we go. Ritchie found it complicated to persuade McAdams to return in a smaller role. She loved being with us, but she hoped to have a bigger role. So I guess there was kind of a little aggravation with not having a bigger role and more substantial role. So, which I mean, I like her in this series, and so I wish she could have kept up with it. But
what do you think about Stephen Fry in this?
I love him. I love him in it. I mean,
Stephen Fry as Mycroft Holmes.
Yeah, I mean, I love him as just in general. So. Anything that he does, I love, and I think Jared Harris is a great a villain as well.
He's a brilliant, like Moriarty.
Yeah, like, for sure.
He's got the look. You know, more so than I think the guy that plays him. The guy that plays him in the BBC series is great. You know, I think he'd make like a good like Joker even, but he's a little more hammy than like Jared Harris's portrayal of Moriarty. Like Jared Harris's portrayal of Moriarty, he's not like a lunatic. He's like pretty grounded. He's a genius foil to Sherlock's character.
Yeah,
you know they're playing on the same level essentially.
Yeah, they're constantly trying to get the one up on each other. Yeah, and for the most part, it feels earned in how they do it. Yeah,
the chess trope.
Yeah,
you know. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, can you imagine an alternate reality where Hugh Laurie plays Sherlock Holmes and Stephen Fry as Mycroft?
I totally could, yeah. Like I would love that.
I'm surprised Hugh Laurie hasn't played Sherlock Holmes yet. I feel like he'd be great.
He would be good.
Well, I mean, like House is that?
Yeah.
You know, I always forget that that's like a what's the word? Like a not like a parallel, but like
an amalgamation almost.
Yeah, like it's like House and Wilson instead of Holmes and Watson.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I love the what was I gonna say? There's a good little joke with the Sherlock Holmes being wary of riding big horses, and so there he rides the little pony or the little horse. It's a good moment.
Great sequence.
Yeah. And I love the investigation into the sniper, you know, who and how that all plays out. I love, and I think the procedural aspects are great in this one. I think where it falls short occasionally is just where it does kind of go back to the kind of standard storytelling of the first one, but it doesn't do that too often. But I think the very final section where they're fighting they're just talking on the balcony is great, and where they fall into the canyon. And I love just the look of that. I think this is probably one of his best looking movies as well. I think it looks fantastic, and the score is another great score by Hans Zimmer. And so yeah, this one is probably the most, or the film of his I've rewatched the most. And it's just a lot of fun, and it's a very interesting blockbuster because of Guy Ritchie's style,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
definitely.
and everyone is kind of at their best performance wise, and so it's
as I said, based on his previous works, I don't think I would have trusted anyone else to do like a modern contemporary actiony Sherlock Holmes kind of movie.
Yeah. I mean, he is very, well, obviously he's not a flawless director. He stands out in that way, like in terms of modernizing something that I guess current audiences could see as boring or dated. He can really bring out the best and the coolest aspects of it.
And definitely RDJ gives a very unique performance as Sherlock Holmes, because there are many adaptations of Sherlock Holmes, and every actor brings their own sort of thing to it. Like Benedict Cumberbatch brings like a sort of autistic, antisocial, not really understanding social situations or human emotions, hyper intelligent sort of thing to it.
Yeah.
And Downey Jr. sort of just brings this like neuroticism
and ruggedness.
Still very unaware of social cues, but like he has more of like a neuroticism, and like always doing these weird experiments and stuff. And some of the older guys sort of just brought a hard-boiled detective feel to it. But yeah, he definitely delivers a very unique performance in in a way that only Robert Downey Jr. can.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of rugged, and it's almost like a Western kind of character, So yeah, I love him in it, and I think I wish he would be praised more for this than for Iron Man, but obviously that's not going to happen. But I think his performance is better in these movies than in Iron Man. But yeah, I love the stuff with the dog at the beginning where he's like tests out the experiment, the potion, and all of that stuff is great.
Gladstone.
Yeah. And yeah, I love Noomi Rapace in it, and I wish she would be in bigger movies, but I guess she was in Bright, but that was a brutal movie.
Something I realized about Bright the other day is it's basically just almost the exact plot of that movie with James Caan from Alien Nation, I think is what it's called.
Oh yeah.
James Caan plays this like New York detective, and he gets paired with this alien partner, and everyone's like super racist towards the aliens, and they're like living among humans, and so he becomes his partner, and they go on all these cases together. And I'm like, is that not just the plot of Bright? I mean, but with orcs instead of aliens.
Yeah.
Kind of just clicked with me, because that movie James Caan is bad, and Bright's not great either.
No, it's pretty bad.
So
yeah. So yeah,
James Caan is in Get Smart.
Is he?
I recently rewatched Get Smart.
Does it hold up?
It's on Netflix. It does actually.
Okay, it's been a long time.
Steve Carell is a very funny man.
Yeah, he
sort of just always plays Michael Scott.
Yeah. I was just rewatching. Shoot, what was it? Some really funny. Oh my god, I was just watching it last night. What was it? It'll come to me. But
was it a Steve Carell movie?
Yeah,
like the 30-year-old or 40-year-old version.
No, shoot, that's gonna bug me. But anyways, yeah. Anything else about Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows?
No, it's great. It's good.
Oh, Dinner for Schmucks.
Oh,
I love him in that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the movie itself is not amazing, but I like him a lot in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, out of 5 stars, 4.
Give this 4.5.
Yeah, same for me. All right. Well, like I said, we're gonna skip over Man from Uncle, and you can check out the regular show on iTunes or Stitcher or TuneIn if you want to hear us talk about Man from Uncle. But moving on to the last film that we're going to be talking about, which is King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, which I've talked about a lot on the regular show as a kind of guilty pleasure.
Great movie.
Yeah. So this one was released in 2017 and stars Charlie Hunnam, Jude Law, once again, Eric Bana, Digimon Hanzu, I think is how you say it, Aidan Gillian, and this one was a pretty big failure, especially financially.
It's because people were like, this doesn't follow the lore. Like I was like, you guys know that like this isn't real history. Right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, King Arthur's it's made up.
Yeah. And so this one, against a budget of $175 million, grossed $148.7 million. And so apparently it lost Warner Brothers and Village Roadshow Pictures over $150 million. Oof. So pretty, and then it was hit pretty hard critically as well.
Maybe that's why we didn't get Sherlock Holmes 3 right away.
Yeah. Well, there was, I think they had announced this is a 6-film series. So, yes, when it came out. And
really?
Yes. And so, but then they were canceled after it bombed. And so, which is really sad because I would love, even if they were all terrible, I would love to see 6 films of this and Guy Ritchie do them all, you know. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, Jude Law is a great villain.
He is, man. He's good.
Charlie Hunnam's a good King Arthur.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's really good.
My favorite moment in this movie is when he powers up Excalibur. And there's that crazy fight scene where he's
towards the end.
Yeah. Towards the end, where he's like ramming into people with the shield, and it's doing all these like fast cuts and like sort of slow motion stuff. I love that.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. Well, like we said, it is kind of similar to Sherlock Holmes, where he modernizes a historical character, and like I've said on the regular show. I hated it when it first came out. When I saw it in theaters, I could not believe how bad it was. But I've rewatched it many times since, and every time it gets a little better for the most part. And so now I completely will say it's not an amazing movie or any piece of high art, but it is just such a weird blockbuster, and such a weird take on this, but a really interesting take. I think
it's very Ritchie.
Yeah.
I don't blame non-Guy Ritchie fans for not liking this movie, because I feel like this movie, much to the detriment of Guy Ritchie, that he made a movie that you can really only truly enjoy if you're a Guy Ritchie fan. Like I feel like King Arthur doesn't work for non-fans.
Yeah.
Because as a Guy Ritchie fan, I loved it. I was like, I could see his style and influence all over this movie.
Yeah.
But as someone that doesn't really know who Guy Ritchie is or doesn't really like him very much, I can definitely see why they'd be like, you know, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that was kind of an accidental failure on Ritchie's part. Mm-hmm. He made a movie for the fans.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think in terms of a producer mentality, I think people seem to like misunderstand, or they seem to think people care more about King Arthur than they actually do. Like I never hear anyone ever talking about the story of King Arthur or saying that was my favorite story when I was growing up. Like I don't think many people actually care that much about this story, which I don't mind, but like I think for producers, I am glad they spent $175 million on this, but I do not see whose idea it was to spend that much money on this type of film.
I think more people care about like Merlin.
Yeah.
You know.
And so
the whole TV show.
Yeah. And so it's just like it is I'm glad they made it, but it really does not make sense as to why they thought it was a good idea to spend that much money on this. But
they're making a live action Sword in the Stone movie.
Oh yeah?
Now, aren't they?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think so.
And so I'm kind of a defender of it now. I agree with you. I can see why a lot of people would not like it. It's very Ritchie. But I really like the nonlinear storytelling at the beginning with the where they're talking about how they ripped off the Vikings, and I love that stuff. I think the humor is good. How it's told is amazing. I love the opening credits with him training or him growing up through the years and him training. And I think the score by Daniel Pemberton, who's done like Steve Jobs and he did The Counselor as well, it's a fantastic score. And I think that really helps elevate certain aspects of it.
The Counselor is a favorite of yours.
It is, yeah. But he's done some really other great scores besides that. But it's just I watched an interview with Ritchie and they said that I think the original cut was like 3.5 hours or something like that. And so, but then he said it was just really boring when we watched it that long. And so we cut it down. And so it does feel like a 2-hour montage in a way. It's the editing is so quick. And I mean, a lot of his other movies feel like that, but I think even more so this movie feels like a smushed version of a long film. And because there are a lot of montages, and but I think all of them are pretty fun. And I love Jude Law. I love Charlie Hunnam.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just it's a weird blockbuster that is fun, and it has a lot of like intentionally gross visuals, like dark visuals with the like the ghostly rider and everything. I love all of that stuff. And I mean Arthur's team isn't that amazing, but it's at least a decent group of people, And but I love the look of the movie in terms of like the costume and production. All of that I think is great. And it's I've watched it many times now, and it's just a fun, wacky time,
I believe I saw this movie in theaters with my girlfriend, and she said she was only interested in it because of Jude Law, because she loves Jude Law.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of like me. She'll go see a movie just for a single actor. Like, she really enjoys an actor, and he or she is in something.
I'm the same way.
She'll be like, I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, I love Brad Pitt, or I love Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart or something. If they were both in a movie, I'd be like, I'll go see that, even if I don't think it's going to be very good. Or like Brad Pitt's in this movie, I'll go see it, even if I don't think it's going to be very good. You know, because I trust these actors. Mm-hmm. I trust them to give a good performance, and it's kind of interesting to see a good performance contrasted against a not very good movie.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's the case here. I do think Legend of the Sword is a good movie, and I think Jude Law is a good villain.
Yeah. One thing that is I would just point out as a noticeable flaw is there's this sequence where you see Charlie's or Arthur's mother killed by the ghost rider, and they cut back to that maybe 10 times in the same way. It's like she gets the spear thrown through her stomach, and you hear Eric Bana say, "Run, son!" And they cut back to that over and over and over and over. And it's just like, I just don't see, we get it. That he's, he saw his mother die, and he's, damaged from that. I can't believe Guy Ritchie was like, yeah, let's cut back to that, 10 times. But
I forgot that Eric Bana played his dad.
Yeah.
Mr. Incredible Hulk himself.
Yeah. And
only other thing I've seen him in.
Really?
Incredible Hulk. Yeah.
Have you not seen Munich?
No.
Oh, you should. Spielberg movie. It's good.
Only other thing. Incredible Hulk, VHS. Watched it a half dozen times.
Nice. And he's also in Black Hawk Down. He has a cool role in that. And you all right?
It's got some of my.
So yeah, I like the locations, and I mean I'm a sucker for medieval stuff, and so I'm a little biased, I guess, but I think it all feels pretty it's all pretty good, I think, for the most part, and maybe a little less David Beckham. He's a little too much in the scene that he's in. He's in most
David Beckham. Like the
Soccer player?
really.
Yeah.
He's in
He
that?
and Guy Ritchie are friends, and he's in a lot of his
forgot.
movies actually, and cameos. But he's the guy who tells Arthur to take out the sword when it's in the stone,
yeah.
and he's like, pull on the shaft. It's like it's a little too. It's so clearly not an actor, but he's kind of fun in it.
I had something to say. It was what was it? We were talking about the Incredible Hulk. And,
Eric Bana.
I think you said he was in
He was in Munich and Black Hawk Down.
Black Hawk Down. Yeah, I recently got a Steelbook release. I saw it.
It just came out in 4K. I got it. I've been wanting to rewatch it. Yeah,
I just saw it in Best Buy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, again, I can see why people don't like it, but I kind of have a soft spot for it, and
Like
I
The
wish
Mummy,
there were
right?
more medieval movies like this. But clearly, it flopped so badly that we're probably not going to see that many more. But
yeah, soft spot like The Mummy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love The Mummy.
This has been a pretty non-controversial show. I think we're mostly in agreement on everything.
Yeah. It's weird. But yeah. Lots of times Chloe will add the controversy, but
Yeah, if she was here, she'd probably just be like, all of it's terrible.
Probably.
It's all bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's I love the there are a couple of like kind of clear rip-offs, like the elephants at the beginning really reminds me of Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Raven vision, where the girl can see through the eyes of the Raven, and that really reminds me of Game of Thrones. But I guess they had to put in a few things that can, draw in some audiences, but what can you do? But it's definitely one I always try and go back and rewatch if I just want something fun to have on. And it's definitely got some really fun, memorable sequences, and I love the action, and it's intentionally dark. I love that stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anything else for you about King Arthur? Give me the 5 other movies. Give me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do it with Transformers and Avatar, might as well do it with this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guarantee that 5 more Avatar films are gonna sell well, but they're doing it anyway. Well, they keep pushing it back, but they're still doing it.
James Cameron, he's gonna bring something good. He's gonna, he's spent so much time on it. It's got to be amazing.
What's the last thing he's done?
Avatar. He's produced. He produced the Terminator movies.
Yeah.
Then he's done some documentaries.
He hasn't directed anything since Avatar.
Don't believe so. Nothing that's been really released.
James, what are you doing?
He's been working on Avatar, man. Co-writing and directing Avatar. So I guess we'll have to wait a couple years.
Do you think Avatar 2 is going to beat Endgame? I
don't think so.
Avatar got lucky.
Yeah.
It was kind of like
right time, right place.
Propelled CGI, like the whole new way of doing CGI and 3D and stuff. I mean, it made so much money because of the 3D ticket sales.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first kind of real 3D movie. So everyone was like, oh, I got to go see this in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying like double the ticket price.
Yeah, it's similar to Alice in Wonderland. That came out around that same time. It was one of the first big 3D visual movies.
I actually like that movie.
I do too. We reviewed it on the show just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I have not seen the second one.
It's not very good.
I would like to, though.
I mean, it's only executive produced by Tim Burton, and so it's really missing.
Sometimes I'll love a movie just for like one reason. Like I'm a little strange that way, where like a movie people can be like, man, that's a bad movie, and I'll be like, but this one thing, I love it. Like Nutcracker in the Four Realms. I think people say that's like pretty generic, like not very good. But Keira Knightley is so incredible in it that I'm just like,
yeah, okay, yeah. So I watched that maybe, I don't know, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I talked about it on the show a little bit. Her performance is so ridiculous, like it's so hypersexual. It's insane. It's like she's like turned on by all these guys, and for the now, I mean, by itself, it's not that weird, but in the context of a Nutcracker Disney movie, it's amazing.
I read a review that said I'm going to give this 5 stars just because Keira Knightley said something about making her feel delicious.
Yeah. Like she's like, I have a shiver running through my spine when I see men in uniform. It's just stuff like that is
Just
amazing.
her look and her voice doesn't sound like Keira Knightley at all.
No.
And the pink, I'm just like, that is
it worked. It worked for sure.
like that whole characterization is what drew me to the movie.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, sure, the plot's not great and
No.
it's like pretty mad, but like because of her performance, I'm like 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Yeah. It's done by Joe Johnston, who did the first Captain America, and he did the Wolfman remake, as well as the first Jumanji, or the original Jumanji.
Really?
Yeah.
The very original Jumanji.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just such a weird movie.
Surprised to find out that not a lot of people like Jumanji. I kind of always thought that it was beloved. But,
I haven't seen it in so long. I remember it creeping me out as a kid. So I guess I haven't gone back to it just because of the scars.
I remember there were just a couple things that creeped me out, like when the kid turns into like a monkey or whatever.
Yeah, stuff like that kind of got to me.
Weird.
Yeah,
but it was just kind of an unnerving movie.
Yeah,
you should definitely watch Welcome to the Jungle though.
I want to. I know it's on Hulu, I think, and so I do.
It's on
my list.
It's on Prime, but I think only if you have like one of the channels, like Stars or something.
Okay, yeah, I think it's on Hulu, so I think I can get it.
Should watch it up.
We'll maybe review it on the show. Do a retro review or something.
I'll be there.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So it's I'm trying to think if there's anything else about King Arthur. Nah, not really.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure I could talk more about it, but all right. Well,
solid.
Yeah, out of 5.
What about you?
It's a 4. It kind of goes between a 3.5 and a 4.5. Although I know 4.5 is way too much for this.
Can I give
movie.
it like a 3.75?
Yeah, man. Go against the grain.
All right.
Yeah.
3.75. But I don't know. You know what? No, let's say 4.
4. All right. There's the controversy,
Yeah.
But
4. I do like. I don't know. I think I'm just trying to say 3.75 just to appease people, but not 4.
There's got to be some King Arthur fans out
4
there,
out of
you know.
5. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that about brings us to the end of the show. Any final things about Guy Ritchie or other things you forgot to mention?
Excited to see Aladdin.
Yeah. Well, I guess one thing is I hope, since Man from U.N.C.L.E. didn't do that well commercially, nor did King Arthur. Obviously, I'm hoping Aladdin gets Guy Ritchie back on top in terms of commercial successes.
We'll see.
Because I mean, I think it'll at least do decently well. I don't think it's not going to flop. I'm sure. I think it's
got some pretty back-to-back live-action Disney movies coming out. Right?
Yeah.
Well, Aladdin and Lion King this year.
Yeah.
And like Maleficent 2.
Yeah. Oh, I know that's directed by one of the co-directors of the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean. So I'm curious.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little fun fact. So I think Aladdin will do at least decently well, and I think we'll review that on the show next week, and we'll probably get Jeremy back, who's on the most recent episode, and so I'm hoping that brings him back, because he's had a bit of a string of misfires in terms of commercial successes. So he's got to get back on top,
Oh yeah. If this doesn't bring him back, Sherlock Holmes 3 will bring him back.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I am definitely curious about how he's his take on Aladdin. So I'm down for that. But all right, I guess that's about it for what we got. But thank you once again for downloading and donating, because it does really help support the show, and we really appreciate any help that you have. And feel free to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Film Buds. And we are going to be, I guess I should say, we are going to be having a lot more news on the Facebook page, and so you can follow movie news and TV news through there. And then you can also follow us on Instagram and email us at thefilmbudspodcast@gmail.com as well with any thoughts or comments, and we'll read them on the regular show. Well, Jacob, man, thanks for coming on again.
No
I'm glad we finally got to nerd out about Guy Ritchie.
I had to delay a few times, but
yeah, that's all right.
Here it is.
Yeah, and we'd love to have you on again sometime before you move away. About maybe for a bonus show or just for the regular podcast, but maybe we can figure something out.
Sure.
But
Gotta
really
get
appreciate.
those Blu-rays back to you.
Oh yeah, man.
So
yeah.
we'll be coming back.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for all the time you've given to being on the shows.
No problem.
Appreciate it, man.
I hope it's successful.
Yeah.
It continues to be successful.
Yeah, and make sure to check out the other bonus shows, like the one on Leonardo DiCaprio, the one on the DC Cinematic Universe that Jacob was also on, as well as our friend Paul Davis over Skype. And so check those out if you haven't as well. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.